It sounds like none of them knew this was going to be like a 2-hour presentation. What's crazy is why you need to put that in this documentary. This documentary is literally titled The Making of Last of Us Part 2, which means there was a Part 1, which means in order to talk about Part 2, we're going to have to talk about Part 1, which means there will be spoilers of both.
And Ellie sees
we got to
Tommy.
get through this.
He's just finished climbing out of this
I feel like if I pause 10 times within 5 minutes, we have to let it run for like 5 minutes without pausing.
And he's hurt bad, and her heart races faster and faster as she sees this trail of blood. She opens the door, revealing Joel's mutilated body. And then shock just sets in.
Bruh, that look right there, that look was like, okay. The exact same look millions of players felt in that moment. So Joel died? That's how you start this off, with Joel dying? Okay. We'll just move past it.
And tries to grab his body, and Dina comes and rips her away, and on that cacophony of sounds, silence. Oh, we're just getting started.
No one seems hyped about this intro. Like, what I'm saying, like, you know, like, bro, you just opened up the game's premise, right, in such a way to where it should leave people like, damn. It should leave people in the way like, all right, I'm invested. No one had that reaction. Everybody just kind of stood in silence, like when they announced Horizon Zero Dawn Part fucking 2. There's just literally a million different routes that the story could have went, being a Part 2. And they went with the route of, oh, you killed NPCs, you deserve to die now. Is Neil Druckmann a writer? I don't know if he's a writer. Joel gets killed for shit that happened in the first one. That you literally, the actions that it puts the player in a weird gaslit sense. Because it's like, okay, you want to kill Joel because he killed your dad, because they were going to kill Ellie for a cure that most likely wasn't going to work. It's just a weird picture to paint a character that you control, that you want to keep alive, that you are playing in hopes of saving the rest of human race, and then literally being punished for it. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. But let's keep going though. It doesn't need a sequel. This is really gonna piss me off. This is actually gonna piss me off, dude. It doesn't need it. Why do you do this? Why do they do this? So they know the fact that people have feelings about Part 1, that it didn't need a sequel, which is, I think, a fair statement. You could end it on Part 1 and not need a Part 2. Like, I would have rather Part 2 be all about Abby. Take Joel and Ellie out of it, right? And it's just all about Abby's fucking origin story or whatever. And then that shit ends with us realizing, like, she's connected to whatever they did. Instead of putting it all in flashbacks on top of fucking flashbacks. So now you got to try and connect all of them while at the same time putting it in a digestible game for people to now care about a character who just killed the most beloved character in the game that you also were and controlled. Like, none of it works. None of it does. The audacity to show Uncharted 3 here makes me so mad, man. I can't. The state of Sony and its exclusives really just, bruh. I guess.
I've been working on this game since we finished. Well, really been thinking about it since we finished.
So he's the VP, co-writer, and director. Fuck.
So many people were like,
co-game
Last
director.
of Us 1 is so perfect. It should never have a sequel.
Listen to the players.
They're like, oh, it wrapped up super great. But I think actually, if you look at the ending...
Swear to me that everything that you said about the Fireflies is true.
Ellie is accepting a lie.
I swear.
Okay.
she has a very good bullshit detector. She knows something doesn't feel right, but I think is too scared at that point to ask.
How long can you really
Oh,
live?
that's the voice actor
But I
that plays
think
Ellie.
it's
Huge.
Good.
I've literally
bullshit
never seen her till
detector.
now.
She knows
Ashley Johnson.
something doesn't feel right.
The Last of Us feels like an origin story for this survivor in this post-apocalyptic world. Seeing like how Ellie has become such a strong, unique character, it really felt like, you know, if we were to do a sequel, it'd be a shame for it not to focus on her.
No, that's fine. You can make a bro. Here's the thing that they don't seem to understand though. Developers, they listen to what a player says, and they take it on surface level. They don't take it on the. They don't think about what that player may have experienced while playing the game, what they may be thinking about after they finish the game, what it felt like for them to play the game, be these characters for whatever time period they played the game for, right? So it's like when you finish The Last of Us Part 1 and you get to that scene and Joel lies to her, right? And it ends on that, wanting to take the story into Ellie's like POV or whatever is completely natural. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. You could either do that or you could stay focused on Joel. I wouldn't recommend it since he is really old. Naturally, he is going to die at some point, either by old age, an accident, a fight, a bite, whatever. He is going to die in this next game. He's too old. He's not going to survive another 20 years. Ellie is, though. She's definitely going to become an adult. So how Joel dies is important. It's important for the story. It's important for the characters. It's important for the players because, if I'm not mistaken, by this point, the first Last of Us had gotten remastered at least once or twice. So that means the fan base fucks with The Last of Us Part 1, right? So that means the fan base fucks with Joel. So choosing to kill this character means that you are now going to put X amount of people in a state of mind, right? So you have to handle that death with the proper hand, which it wasn't. To me, it was like, yeah, this was the first thought. Let's kill Joel. Let's open with that. And everything else followed after. And I'm like, that you should have had more thought on this. You should have went through this a little bit more. Because if we're going to go through Ellie's perspective, you know, what did we show in the first game? What didn't we show in the first game about Ellie that we can now explore here? And then it's like you avoid doing flashbacks over flashbacks. Just focus on Ellie, you know. Maybe show us bits of what happened after that lie, but also keep it in the future where she is a little bit older now, and that lie is starting to have effects. It could just simply be about Ellie wanting to start a life, or have Joel having to let her go. You know, there's so many nuances. Considering Joel didn't get to see his daughter grow up, he's getting to see Ellie grow up, and that may be affecting him, right? Like there's so many different. He may be afraid of dying because he wants to be able to see her grow up. He's come to peace with death after seeing Ellie grow up and not seeing his daughter grow up. There are so many things that you could have taken from the first one, mind you, things that are not out of the player's control, but rather enriches the character's experience. Like understanding Joel's grief about his daughter enriches the character's experience. Understanding Ellie's like need and longing for something outside of his life is something that enriches her character. So I feel like building on that within the start of part 2 would have been way better. Like these characters finally getting these things that they wanted for a while, and then losing all of that because of whatever. And then at the end, Ellie may get what she wants, and Joel may get what he wants, which is probably death or peace, you know, and it's less of a jarring thing and more of a, I'm ready to, as a player, mind you, I'm ready to let this character go. They need to have that satisfaction with the character's end. We as a character, like part 2 came out at a time when people have not, aside from the remasters, right? Like it's been some time since part 1 came out. So reconnecting with these characters again meant a lot for a lot of different people, I'd imagine. If it was handled any differently, everything else in the sequel, people would have been able to just like, not true. Fuck that, I lied. Not true. There was a lot of other things people really did not like about the story.
Once we're done with this whole thing,
Uh,
that had nothing to do with Joel's
I'll teach you how to
death.
play guitar. Yeah, I reckon you'd really like that.
Is this what the...
Joel
Why does this look so
is gonna
weird?
teach Ellie to play guitar. That always felt like That's just this like unanswered promise that like was kind of lingering at the end of the first game. We did this thing called One Night Live, where we had the
Broad
actors
Stage,
come on
Santa
stage
Monica.
and reenact certain scenes.
They have their own little quarantine zone, and the doctors are still trying to find a cure.
Love that they have the
this
voice
scene.
actor playing Ellie, but like since it's live action, it's not like it's not a kid Ellie that you would expect to see. It's not even someone. It's just her.
That takes place after the ending of The Last
It's
of Us.
like,
But it
the
was
only
only shown
immersion
to
is the
people
audio
in the
immersion.
audience. Like we cut off the stream right before we showed them the scene.
If I ever were to
Should have put Pedro in this one too.
I'd surely lose myself.
You know, like this thing would have been amazing if Joel's death was handled better, and then they released this little live action Broadway thing, because then that would literally bring tears to anybody that's a fan of the series of the game, right? Because it's like you just played part 1, you just played part 2, Joel's now gone, and then you watch this fucking live action thing, and it's this fucking dude playing a guitar singing, and it's the saddest thing you've ever seen, and next thing you know you're crying because you miss a fictional character. Like, I don't get how these emotional things, like this would, sure, people could cry irregardless of when this comes out, right? Before or after part 2, but like, why not push it as high as you can, you know? Like, whatever.
She's yours.
Like, imagine, like, literally just imagine like a collector's edition of The Last of Us. You get part 1, part 2, and this live action thing or whatever. That would have been sick. Like, but no, you don't get anything in that capacity because too many people hate The Last of Us part 2 now.
I know the first thing about this.
Hey,
And I'm sure that kind of trickled into this idea of this trailer. So I started working on some concept art, kept fleshing out the story. And as it felt like it was kind of gaining momentum, Uncharted 4 needed all hands on deck.
As it should have. Like, you should have just left that little note in your brain about part 2. Be like, all right, this is a really interesting scene. I'm gonna just keep this in my head. Let's work on Uncharted 4. We'll come back to this because this is something. And I agree with them. That thought of that scene, excellent. How to put it into the next game, how to integrate it into the audience, how to get them to experience it. That part requires more thought. Like, because I'm like, yeah, that's completely perfect. Like, imagine that scene, that cut scene is in the game or some shit, and then you cut to an older Ellie, you know, and it's like it all works because you're telling a fucking linear story, dude, not a scattered piece of shit. But
Naughty Dog had always
whatever.
made one.
I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and I fear no evil, because I'm blind to it all. Said I walk beside the still waters, and they restore my soul, but I can't walk on the path of the right, 'cause I'm wrong.
During the entire production of Uncharted 4, if we're gonna surprise
that's
people,
so sad. You see the early beginnings of what's gonna be the most frustrating thing to deal with when it comes to PlayStation. And it's this fucking Horizon little robot, little piece of shit. Like, this fucking robot is... They want Horizon to be so important to players. And it's just simply not. No one cares enough. Such a nerdy thing to have, my guy. Just get a normal phone case.
when we first revealed The Last of Us, the Naughty Dog logo came up and the crowd erupted, and it was such a high that that's almost been like chasing the dragon, like wanting to recapture that feeling.
Didn't I say that? Didn't I literally just say that shit? He just said it. It was that high. That was the high that he was looking for, was to recapture that feeling. Like, bro, you made it for the wrong reasons then. You shouldn't be trying to capture lightning in a bottle again. You should be trying to find the newest, best thing, the best fucking way to push this game to a place that it's never been before. Like, what are you trying to do? Recapture shit. This game came out in 2015, 2014, bro? It's like, we've already told that devastating story. Push on. You know, show us how this really does become a world of The Last of Us, not a world of crybabies.
What are you doing, kiddo?
People outside the studio have such an attachment to the first game, and I've definitely seen fears about not wanting to make a sequel because somehow if it's bad, it will tarnish your feeling about the first game.
I'm gonna find. And I'm gonna kill. Every last one of them.
We're doubling down on those fears and not calling it The Last of Us some subtitle. It's The Last of Us Part 2 to say it's all one story. The concept for the sequel had to feel compelling enough, have enough weight that felt like, okay, this is an experience worth creating, worth spending the next 3 years on. I became really intrigued with the idea of the cycle of violence and how, like...
Oh, so here's where we get the actual explanation. Man. How many people saw this video? Out of curiosity. 2 million people. Premiered on February. This premiered way too late, by the way. February 2nd, 2024. That's crazy. This is ridiculous. How does it take 4 years to come out with a documentary about the game, explaining why these choices were made? So let's hear his choice. Let's hear his reasons. I want to understand. The point of watching this was to understand. So let me understand.
Events would trigger acts of violence that then would beget more acts of violence.
It's almost never satisfying. It never brings the person you love back. And despite you thinking it's going to bring some closure, it doesn't. We just need more empathy.
Wouldn't it be awesome if we could create an experience that lets you safely explore those feelings?
In the game called The Last of Us, that's a fucking zombie game? You want people to feel safe? Bruh.
With that theme, all of a sudden everything fell into place and this outline emerged. The whole catalyst for what starts the second game is Joel killing the doctor.
Why? We have no choice in changing this outcome.
That feeds right back in that idea of that cycle of violence. Now,
bruh, they were literally about to kill her. I'm so irritated. It's like he was just like, the only thing he sees in the 60-second sequence is just Joel shooting a doctor. Not the context, not why, not the first 10, 15 minutes of the player literally being killed and attacked by other people. Just, oh no, Joel shot a doctor. So that set off the events for the second one. I'm so irritated. This is stupid, dude. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Events. We're going to start the game where you're playing a new character. That sequence ends with this character killing Joel. And we really have to paint her as this monster. Then when you play the next chunk of the game and you're Ellie and you're going to pursue justice, quote unquote, and you're going to go kill this entire crew, we're going to go back in time and show you that same sequence of events, this character that you saw as a monster, to now get you to see things from her perspective.
No one wants to fucking do that. No one wants to do that, though. The problem is he doesn't want to have a villain in his game, which means the game has no point. There's no point to it if there's no villain and no hero, bro. What the fuck? This is the dumbest logic I've ever heard, and it makes me so mad because it's like, up until this point, we could all make our arguments about why part 2 is good or bad, and our reasons for not liking it can be there, right? But then it's like to hear him explain and know his explanation is exactly the reasons why we don't like the game. It's crazy. Like I'm never, maybe I failed with my degree. Maybe I did not become good at identifying good storylines. But it's like, oh no, this is true. He's just fucking retarded. He wrote the game as if it's a book where you're just like as if you're just supposed to experience what these people experience. But no, you're these characters. It's not fair to punish the player for doing things that they literally have no choice in doing. It would be different if this was a choice game and you had the choice to not kill people. And because you chose to kill people, all this stuff happened. Versus it literally makes no sense. Especially in a game that is set up in a world where people kill people and you die and kill people. Like, it's like he didn't want to make a zombie game. It's crazy it actually doesn't make sense on so many different levels when you think about the series of events in the first game, of everything that happens in the first game, the type of people you encounter. Hell, I literally just watched the fucking show, and I'm on episode 8 right now, and these people that are when Joel's unconscious and Ellie is on her own and shit. These people, you know what they do? They're cannibals. You want to know how we know this? Because when in the game she's in the cage and he talks about cutting her up, you know? And then in the show, they even allude to it because when they're prepping dinner and shit, one of the cooks asks, what is it? And the dude's like, venison, as if to clarify that this isn't humans this time, you know? So when you set up a world that's already this brutal and violent, to then punish the viewer and audience for the theme that you created, it makes me want to punch you. Let's keep going.
And how this crew is a bunch of people trying to survive in this world, and they had their reasons for pursuing and finding Joel and killing him.
And the story was becoming very epic and ambitious, and I had a few.
These are
parts that I
the
was
complete
kinda
opposite
stuck
of the
on,
words anybody would
and
use.
I felt like to kind of shake things up, I wanted to bring in another writer.
And I hope this writer, if this writer doesn't tell you your idea is stupid, then they did it for the money. That's all I can say.
I thought it was a very thoughtful story about violence and obsession.
Well, you know, money.
He had Abby, sort of like this girl who was the daughter of the doctor.
What's it really drives you insane. Again, we're gonna go back, and then you're gonna empathize with the bad guy, because why not? Because I didn't think past that one idea. I hate that when it's the people that have all the power, because then no one's telling you your ideas are shit. You know, think them through a little bit more. If you played this as a hardcore Last of Us fan, do you think you'd be okay playing the person that killed Joel immediately right after? No.
And that Ellie would go on this vengeance quest. And when he was like, and then Ellie actually kills Abby, I was like, what? You're gonna... Yeah, let's fucking do it.
No.
Why are you surprised at Ellie killing Abby after Abby killed Joel, and that it's very clear that all these people have killed people before? Did I do something wrong in the first game? Did I kill everybody in the first? Were you not supposed to kill people in the first game? Were you just supposed to move past them or some fucking magic trick? Because if I'm not mistaken, you can't just walk up to the NPCs. They're gonna what? They're gonna shoot you. They're gonna hit you. They're gonna kill you. They're gonna stab you. So it's like, what are your options?
Ellie is this very relatable character. I thought she was a perfect vehicle to challenge this notion that violence doesn't have a cost, because it does have a cost in reality.
This isn't reality, though. This is a fucking video game where violence has no cost. Like, I'm so stressed out because they wrote this shit like it's a TV show, right? Or like it's a movie, or like it's happening in real time. This is a video game. Violence literally has no cost in a video game. That's almost, some would say that's the appeal. That you could do whatever you want and it mean nothing. It's like they completely forgot how games work. This would have been fine if it was the TV show, right? That theme of violence having a cost, that theme of revenge and evil begetting evil, that's all fine. Hell, that theme can almost work in a video game to a degree in which the character, the player, is not punished for doing what is expected of the player. Come on.
It's going to ruin this girl. You know, people love Joel and Ellie, and we are about to kill one and make the other one a villain.
How is Ellie a villain here? How is Ellie a villain here? Honestly, tell me how Ellie is a villain in any capacity. She, like, that sentence actually made no sense. She said we're about to kill one and make the other a villain. Huh? This is crazy, bro. I smoke weed. I don't do hard drugs. How the fuck do you get this job? What the fuck? Like, it actually... It makes me so dumbfounded.
Very nervous telling Troy we're going to kill off Joel.
I'd be nervous too.
First game, he was advocating that Joel should die. Joel has crossed these moral lines and therefore he deserves to die, and he thought it might be a more dramatic ending. And I was like, no, you're crazy. Like, but then in the second game, that's why I was like, thought like, oh, he would take it pretty easily.
He goes, so Joel dies. And he's like, so this happens. And then, and I literally had to stop. I was like, can you give me just a second? Because it literally was as if someone was telling me about how my friend had just died.
Exactly. And it's like, to keep starting off with that is just the worst fucking, like, you don't even be like, hey, I'm gonna brace you right now. I need you to brace yourself. In this part 2, we are going to go with that idea of Joel dying. But here's how we're gonna do it. Not, so Joel dies. Like, bro, we care about this character. Some of us think he's alive. You know? So how about we don't just off top cut his head off? Let's have a little bit of respect to the character here, to the legacy of this character. And this weird notion that somehow at the end of the game he's gone off this moral deep end. So I'm like, what is this saying? That most people would rather Ellie die for the possibility of something that may not even work? So now he's in the wrong for not wanting to kill a kid. It's crazy, the thought process, bro.
I think
you wrote this game like
hard. It was like
all of a sudden it was, please don't take this from me yet.
Ellie is
because no one is
scared
ready to say goodbye to Joel off top like that.
to be alone. Everybody that she's loved up until that point, she's lost them.
It's hard to imagine the story without Joel dying. Like, you feel that hate, Ellie feels that hate. You're one-to-one, you're on the stick, and that informs the rest of the story.
And then when I play Abby, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just stand there and let her die like 50 times. Like, fuck that character, dude. You are the worst designer and worst narrator of video games in history. Like, the notion of Joel dying, I think, is always great choice. But to weave it out perfectly, this could be a 3-part game and be like, you know what I want to do? I do want Joel to die. Where does that moment happen? Why? And how is it going to be significant for Ellie's arc going forward? Right? Are these not questions you had? Like, it's like they didn't care about the character at all. Troy Baker seemed to care more about the character than they did. Like, he was like, can we take a minute? Like, I feel like you just told me something about my friend. Like, bruh.
You okay?
Yeah.
we get you through interactivity to really connect and empathize with this character.
Y'all act like you heard of us or something.
And then make you feel like I've led Joel to a trap.
And you are now the character, like, yeah, you feel like you are responsible for this character dying. And it almost makes you emotional if you think too much about it, because it's like, I don't want this character to die, yet I have no choice in that matter. And it's not the right feeling to me. Like, it's great. I think it's a unique feeling to capture in a horror game, in a survival game, to really make the player feel like they don't have a choice. I think that's a significant thing, and it's hard to do in survival games. I think it's poorly done here, though. I think it's done in the wrong way. I think we shouldn't have a choice in Joel's death. I think, like, we should feel like we're not ready for it, but I don't think it should happen right here. I don't think it should happen this way. People have not touched this character in fucking years, some of them. Let them have a time to at least be reacquainted, so that way you can then destroy their hopes. Fucking hate this guy.
When we started out making Last of Us Part 2, Neil actually wanted to be very ambitious about changing the game almost entirely. In the first, like, 4 or 5 months, the game was actually kind of an open world, inspired by Bloodborne.
Terrible choice. Would have been a fucking flop of a game if you made it like Bloodborne. What? Like, what the fuck does that even mean? We wanted to make it, we were thinking about making it like Bloodborne, actually. You know, those boss fights? Fuck yeah, in Last of Us. Because everybody knows that in The Last of Us, you got plenty of ammo, plenty of resources, plenty of everything to take on a full-ass boss fight, let alone a clicker. Wanted it to be just like Bloodborne. Hate this guy.
And, like, it was purely melee focused, like, it was all hand-to-hand combat.
That's what their players love, is that frustrating combat.
It wasn't just the melee combat, we were also looking at sort of layout structure. Bloodborne had a very sort of an open
just floats
space
away.
that sort
Hilarious.
of kept getting bigger and bigger as you explored.
They should have kept that little game design in the game.
Starting out with 1 or 2 mechanics and building up to those mechanics.
I wish it stayed looking like this. This would have been a wild ass game. All these polygraphs and shit. Is that the word what those things are? Like the weird fucking just poly things.
To work in QA, and that was a great learning experience. I shipped The Last of Us and Uncharted 4.
The thing I'm proudest of is the people who came in to a quality assurance job as a contractor, which is entry-level work, and used that job to get to where they ultimately wanted to be.
When I interviewed for the QA position, I specifically said that my goal was to be a designer.
He had formed this relationship with design where they knew they could rely on him, spending his free time designing a demo, and at the same time, him going to them and not being like, here's 50 bugs you need to fix. He went to them and was like, what do you need? How do I help you? What kind of bugs do you need? And for their part, they embraced him and were like, why don't we show you how to lay out nav mesh?
Well, I mean, maybe if he told them, like, hey, here's 50 bugs and your games would be fucking finished when they release. Like, I don't understand. What is this weird ass mentality where it's like, hey, we're making a game that's gonna cost people money. Let's deal with the fact that there's 50 bugs. What do you need? But also keep in mind there's 50 bugs in your game. So what do you need? Like, there is no, like, this dude sounds sweet, but like at the same time, you know, if we're not vocal about those problems with the games, then we get to where we're at now, right? Where it's like, and there's this disconnection between players and the development or the studios about what makes a game fun and enjoyable, because no one's like really listening when it's like we should be. Because we deserve good games, but the studios also deserve to be able to work in an environment that is effective for them, efficient for them, like without them feeling overworked. But like, we need a middle ground. This is ridiculous.
I am anxious to prove myself. There is no babying when you start. You just hits the ground running. If I don't,
is that how he jumps in bed and you just hit the ground running? That's how he makes a baby.
Or find something else.
Sounds painful.
We're trying to figure out at the moment.
Like when you want to make a baby, bro. I mean, there's a million ways to make a baby, but if you want to make a baby, right, and you're trying to have a child, right, I imagine you don't just hit the ground running. I imagine there's some romance involved. There's some build up. There's some there's some sexual things that happen before you bust, right? Like, so at the end of the day, even when making a baby, there is some time and care, love, and attention to it. You're both in agreement that this is a thing we're hoping, isn't shit. So I'm just pointing out the flaws in what they're saying.
Everyone seems to agree that the thing we're building is going to be cool. Once it's done, it's just that it's such a big game.
And that seems to be the problem. Like, it seems like you all are saying the thing that you don't really want to say, and that the game's too big. It has way too many parts for it to, like, hey, guess what? It has too many flashbacks. It has way too many. Way too many. You guys have bitten off more than you can chew, and you have no idea if this game's going to be good.
We have no producers at Naughty Dog.
There's so many talented people here that you can rely on and lean on.
But sometimes I think we need to be saved from ourselves a little bit.
It's a very, very messy process, which is, again, why it's a lot of times really difficult to
2016.
schedule. I think right now we are planning on springtime of 2018. So when springtime of 2018 comes around, The Last of Us 2 isn't in stores, you can look back at this and say, well, I guess their plan wasn't exactly set in stone.
June 19th, 2020. So,
Historically, we've done very poorly at being efficient without
Great
the
start.
pressure of an external deadline.
We got to keep the marketing rolling, which means next E3, 6 months away, we need to look at a gameplay demo.
E3, it's always been the biggest and most...
This is the problem, is you're setting deadlines for yourself that you just can't possibly meet with a good game and a good story. Like, you're going to have one, but not both. So why even push it? Just take your time with it. Like, you have 300 people. So no one, like, if you set these deadlines that are just... that you guys literally said to yourself, you don't work well under extreme deadlines. Don't give yourself one. You think 2018? Nah, just say 2020 just to be safe. That way we could at least have some time to test the game. Or if something new changes, we can update it. Anything.
There's something
GTA took years to release GTA 6. Rockstar took years for GTA 6. Years. Decades.
With Lost Legacy shipping at around the same time of E3, there are shared resources between the two projects.
Especially sound and particle effects, so they were all on Uncharted.
When it comes to the polish phase, both we're polishing this and that and SPDLC at the same time. I don't think there's any specific item that needs to be worked on, but I think there's going to be programmer time doing both those things. And
there are going to be times when it's like this needs polishing in E3 and this needs polishing in SPDLC, and like we're gonna have to compromise at times, maybe.
So that's why it's like, hey, maybe we just push it back. We tell people, hey, we're really busy working on Uncharted Lost Legacy. We promise as soon as it is a good time for our programmers, our designers, everybody to be able to focus on the project, we will get back to The Last of Us Part 2. Delay the game, tell people that. Guess what? They're fine with it, because great. Glad to know you're taking time with it. Glad to know you're taking time with Lost Legacy. Hey, that's what people want to hear. Like, I don't understand why these people think they need extreme deadlines when it's like, no one asked for that. We just asked for a good game.
Have it at the forefront of our minds that, yeah, they're freaking shipping a video game. It's literally the hardest part of making the game is shipping it. And we were trying to ship a demo, the second hardest thing you can do, at the same time, and sharing a lot of their resources.
I got like a really clear energy of the meeting, which was how do we shrink it? It was such an impossible task. You can't help but start feeling some doubt, some anxiety about full leadership, not understanding the logic of it. I think like anybody else here, I was definitely ready to roll up my sleeves and figure it out.
I mean, yeah, you kind of have to. It's, it's not like you wanted to. You kind of have to. It's your job. So, yeah. It's like, all right, the only thing that's making this reasonable to me is like, oh, well, it's The Last of Us Part 2. So it's like, I want to make it work. I want this game. The players want this game. This game needs to come out. We can make it happen, I'm sure, if we just put our heads together, we'll figure it out, right? That's the mindset. I'm like, that's perfectly fine. It's a perfectly fine mindset to have. The only problem is it doesn't work. It just simply doesn't work because you don't have the time and the bandwidth. One game at a time, buddy.
Alright guys, we're gonna try to keep this pretty short. I guess. So after yesterday's meeting, there were a lot of side conversations, and there was sort of a sentiment about how much work there was to get not only this demo done to ship the Lost Legacy, and it matched up with feelings that we were having. So we started discussing the responsibility of actually attempting this, and started to feel that it was a little bit irresponsible. That if we were to try to meet both these deadlines, we could probably do it, but we would end up doing a lesser job on both projects, both deadlines, than we would if we were doing them individually. And
Sweet.
feel
Accountability.
they're both important enough to give them the due attention. So the conclusion that definitely is there is that the demo that was discussed yesterday will not be presented at E3.
Which is fine.
Does it mean that our main point should be just focusing on more shipping before?
The Lost Legacy?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, we should still try to. We don't, like I said, just want to just completely halt work on this and.
Why not?
All hands on deck on Lost Legacy.
Why not? You
Finish
just.
the demo just to give a buffer so that these two deadlines aren't overlapping. Okay. It's just now we have more time to work on this demo properly without the pressure.
Once that meeting
Bruh,
happened,
it's like they
was
don't
just-
want to let it go. Just let it go for a minute. Just drop it. Like, just focus on Lost Legacy. It's not that hard. Ship Lost Legacy, do a good job, and then guess what? Your reward is you get to work on part 2 all day, all night for as long as you want. No interruptions, no deadlines other than the one you all.
It makes sense not to do this. It felt really nice seeing the leadership kind of having the teams back.
This man sounds brainwashed. He says it makes sense not to focus on the Lost Legacy. It makes sense to do this. You know? Like, I mean, even though we've already backed out of E3 then, yeah, it makes sense to keep trying to work on both. Even though we don't have the resources. It makes complete sense.
And seeing the logic
Weird.
of the situation in front of them.
That's it. Cool. Thanks.
Okay, so are you pissed off?
Am I pissed off? No.
I'm disappointed.
I guess in one sense it's relieved because there was concern of whether we could hit the quality that we know we need to hit for both Lost Legacies and for our.
But now you can just focus on getting the story for part 2 really tied down, though. That's the thing that's crazy to me. It's like, how is it? It's like you have this time now to like really hone in on the story and make sure it's solid, and you just choose not to. While you're wearing the Last of Us shirt, man, shave your beard. You don't deserve it.
What we've decided to do is deliver the demo at around the same time, but that's going to be purely internal, and the demo won't be 100% shippable. Gameplay and design and animation are going to be locked in June. Then we back off, we finish Lost Legacy, and then resources free up to finish the particle effects, the lighting, and the sound. And then we ship just the glossiest, best looking demo you've ever seen. We burn that to a disc at the beginning of January, and then we don't touch it again, and nobody sees it until E3. It's going to be really interesting to see if we can really, really commit to being done, 5 months, 6 months in advance of E3, and not be tempted to say it could be a little better. Let's go back.
People are just chatting. I'm writing stuff.
And we really just need to have the discipline not to do that.
Abby evolved over time, and if you look at the concept art, the character looked very different than where we've ended up.
She got jacked.
There's something interesting in Abby feeling a lot like Joel.
So when I got cast,
Neil was like joking around and he's like, you should probably beef up in order to play her. And I'm like, ha ha ha, yeah, it's mocap, whatever. He goes, no, really, you should probably beef up to play her. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I should totally
Really,
start
hit the gym right now. Do some
deadlifting
push-ups.
as
The
much
fuck?
as possible.
Do it right now or you're fired. What the fuck? I'll find a new Abby. There are plenty of voice actors. AI is coming. Imagine. He threatened her. He's like, bro, if you don't hit the gym right now, if I don't see a membership page open on one of those tabs on your computers, you're done. Fuck out of here.
We need to separate her from Ellie. It shouldn't feel like I'm playing a reskinned Ellie, that Abby should, in many ways, look, behave, fight differently. Can't just remap Ellie's animation onto Abby.
Or we just don't play Abby.
Holy fuck.
Abby has a fear of height, and there's stuff we're doing with the camera to make you feel vertigo.
Or we just don't play Abby.
And that helps build empathy. It makes this character real.
Or we just don't play Abby.
It's about saying, can you come to love your enemy?
Scars built all this?
No.
Seraphites. How long have you two been on the run for?
2 days.
What the hell did you do?
I shaved my head.
They want to kill a little boy because he shaved his head.
Disregarded this entire part of the
Ask me
game.
about it? Do you want me to ask
Like,
you about it?
why do we need to see Abby do this?
Okay.
It's really about trying to create
Isn't Ellie the main
multifaceted character who is trans, and that is absolutely an important part of who he is, but also a part of who he is, not the whole of who he is.
Lost Legacy turned out to be a much bigger project than we originally envisioned, but now that it's done, everyone is now on board.
We've got the green light demo done.
She's putting on quite the show.
It's very real. We're in full production now, so I guess that's the short of it, is we're in full production now.
Let's have the first in-depth look at a much anticipated and exclusive title.
Last of Us 2. Last of Us 2. Please, please. Please be Last of Us 2.
Our fans, they want to know
He's wearing a
every
Killzone
last
3
thing
shirt,
about
though.
what's going to be in this game.
You start on characters you've never seen before in a world that, like, could be The Last of Us, could be anything. That creates, like, a really, really cool sense of tension.
At no point are we going to market that you play as this other character.
What is this? Yo, that looks good, though.
I was so excited about working on it and I couldn't say anything. It was so rough.
Oh, is she gonna cut a baby out of her belly?
And then Uncharted 4, you find a comic book that shows Ellie's mom pregnant. So people already had theories that Last of Us Part 2 was going to have Ellie's mom. Oh, if we just kind of black out the letters, she has the same number of letters as Anna, Ellie's mom's name, we'll get people to think this is Ellie's mom.
So you lie to them?
Oh my God.
You want people to feel like they figured everything out, and then
Why?
have the story surprise them.
Man, if this is The Last of Us 2, bro,
Like,
I'm gonna go crazy.
you're trying to now outsmart your audience for no reason.
Last of Us 2?
Everything that we put out there is shaping expectation, and then the final game, hopefully, if we do our job right, should subvert those expectations in an interesting way. We knew we were
Like, why do you want people going down this disappointing road? Like, you know how frustrating that must feel to go in thinking like, oh damn, maybe this is Ellie's mom. To not only then learn not how wrong you are, but the fact that this is the bitch that kills Joel, and you're like, hey, what the fuck? Like, at that point, I wouldn't be surprised if you uninstalled the game because you would feel so disrespected. Literally, the buildup of this game has been misled to you on purpose. Like, you can tell people what the game is and then still subvert their expectations and with the core of the game. This is going to be a story about Ellie's growth into adulthood, surviving in this harsh world. And then the game elevates that experience by subverting your expectations of it not being exactly what you think. Not Joel not just dying, but dying in a way that's crazy. Ellie experiencing things that we never thought she would have to experience. Like the only really jarring thing I can remember from part 2 was when Ellie lost her fingers. I was like, that was a lot. Like, that one was the only time where I actually felt hurt. And that's only because I've been connected to Ellie because of part 1. So I was like, her losing fingers was a lot. You know what I mean? So that's the only way you've subverted expectations for someone who was a fan of The Last of Us. Like, everything else is just a lie. That's it.
Pushing boundaries with that cinematic. We are making a violent game. We're not going to shy away from how violent it is. It is part of what we're trying to say.
But you're blaming people for that violence.
About what is the appropriate level of violence? When is something so violent that it just turns you off, where you just don't want to experience it at all? I like that they were wrestling with those things. I didn't like some of the insinuations about the trailer being misogynistic towards the female characters.
I don't think this story ever glorifies violence against women. There's no bias towards women or men. It just so happens that the 2 protagonists of this story are female, and therefore that's what you're going to see the most of.
There has to be fail states in video games, which means a character has to be capable of being hurt. So does that mean that there can be no female protagonists in video games? Don't we want to see women fucking fight back once in a while? That's so fucking... Do a modicum of fucking research. Just a modicum. Just a modicum of research. Just like
I could tell you guys the same exact thing about your own story. Not about the characters, just about the story. Hey, do your own research on what makes a good story. What the people actually was hoping for in the game. Because you delivered shit. You know, take your own advice.
Suggests that no woman could have worked on this because of the level of violence, because there was violence against women, because it's so fucking sexist. I like watching graphic violence. Does that make me less female? Like, I like playing video games. Does that make me less fucking female? Like, suck a dick. These characters are more than just their vaginas.
No one.
If you want to have a serious debate about feminism and feminism in video games and female depiction of violence, and you need to not see it as a binary conversation. It is an incredibly nuanced conversation. You cannot make blanket statements, and you cannot make presumptions. Fucking do your homework.
Sheesh. You know, I would have just been mad that, like, these fucking characters are just being punished for violence in a world where violence is literally the only answer. But okay.
Our job outside of just drawing up concepts is really pushing our reference pipeline to make sure that the character artists are getting the most realistic examples of whatever they're working on.
Mm-hmm. They have to see a real head get decapitated.
Certain things, so we make the reference ourselves. What does canvas look like when it's soaked in blood?
That's pretty cool.
Splashing blood on them, dripping blood on them.
This is the fun stuff. Cool stuff.
We put down some wet mud, pooled blood onto it to see how blood would react to a wet dirt surface.
Weird.
So like little pieces of,
we used real blood. I actually sold a pint of my own, so that way we could use for this set. That would be really intense. Imagine that they all like signed a form to like give like an ounce of their blood for the project, for like stuff like this in the project. Like, so they're like, yeah, we used real blood. Like, everybody signed a waiver. So that's Jeff's blood. That's Sandra's blood. That's mine right there. You know, and we put Glenn's blood in the mud to see what would happen to it. Like, you know, they become real scientists with blood. I would like, that would be cool. But of course, maybe it's like a little too far morally, I guess.
Animators got
a waste
piece
of blood, I
lamb
guess,
and
too.
we stuck it in Yara's shirt sleeve.
But I bet you if they did, this game would sell 10 times more. Jesus, he's really going for it.
I got on the ground and pretended to eat away at like a bloody soaked rag that we made.
That's pretty wild. This is really cool, I guess. Like, he's just really like pretending to be a zombie here.
Some
This
pretty
is so crazy.
surprising results because like most of my face got covered in blood.
Look up a little, John, but yeah. Teeth?
He looks scary just
People
like
here
that.
will go to that length of trying to make sure that things feel as real as possible. Yeah, we do a lot of crazy stuff here. Nobody gets hurt, but
Thankfully.
it's really hard to see these characters that you spend so much
it doesn't
time
matter.
with, and for lack of a better word, kind of like, you know, birthing into existence, tortured and abused.
Oh man. Maybe this is where we should pause, huh? I don't want to. I feel like it's too late to get too riled up about this situation at this point. You know, we've already ranted about Joel's death, and seeing how they've separated in a practically a segment and a half of Joel's death in this game, I'm not going through it twice in one night. I think I've made enough of a fuss about this. So yeah, we'll end it there.